Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the 4th episode of Between Classes. Today we're recording this episode on Thursday, April 23rd, which is about a week before the school committee elections. However, we're gonna kind of hold this episode and release it after. And kind of on the basis of that, we are going to be diving into the dynamics of the school committee itself, and we are very lucky to do that with our guest, Joanna French, today. As always, I'm your host, Mila Mandeville. Behind the camera, we have Charlotte from Westwood Media Center, and I'm joined today with two awesome co-hosts.
I am Sebastian Castro.
And I'm Hunter Gusty.
All right, so let's get started. I guess to get the ball rolling, Mrs. French, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself and your current role on the school committee?
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for having me here. I'm so excited to be here, and thanks for the invitation. And thanks to Westwood Media Center for recording, and Charlotte for being here, running all the gear. And please call me Joanna, but you do you. It's okay. Whatever you want to do. But I'm okay with Joanna. Okay, thank you. So my family and I moved to Westwood in 2018, and we very deliberately moved here for the excellent schools. We moved around a bit when the kids were young and always were searching for that perfect school. And so it was with a lot of intention that we chose Westwood schools. And, we're really happy here. And I'm proud of the education they're getting and the opportunities they've had. I have two boys. My oldest, Tim, is a junior at the high school. And my youngest, Danny, is in 6th grade at Thurston. So professionally, I spend my day as the Senior Director of Communications at MIT Sloan. And what that means is I help my colleagues tell their story and share the data behind who they're trying to reach and how they're trying to reach them, and in order for the public to learn more about what we do in our research and our work and our faculty's work and our students. So it's a lot of fun, but I see higher ed as like an extension of what public education can lead to, because I see the brilliance behind the students that are at MIT Sloan. I've served on the school committee since 2023, and during that time, I've helped shape the strategic plan that we're putting into action. I've been on the World Language and Performing Arts curriculum reviews, which means that we're helping, all of our subjects, all of our core subjects are evaluated and reviewed on a regular basis. And there's like a pipeline, and the part of the pipeline that I've been a part of is the World Language and the Performing Arts curriculum. So looking forward to implementing and enacting the recommendations that come from those reviews. We've restored travel opportunities, and I probably should say that my son right now is in Europe somewhere with our amazing history faculty, exploring Europe through the lens of like history and World War II sites, and I'm just really excited for him to have had that opportunity. During my time here, we've also onboarded our superintendent and our assistant superintendent. We've opened Pine Hill School. But I have to say that my favorite day being a part of school committee was honestly going to the Mass Association of School Committees Day on the Hill. We did that last month. Mila joined me with Avery Hurley, and Hunter wasn't able to make it, and we were so sad to not have you because we had so much fun. I know you would have enjoyed it. But it was really so much fun to watch you and watch Avery kind of sneak behind the curtain and see how our budgets are, our state budget is made, and how that impacts what we do here at that local level. And we met with Representative
McMurtry.
Thank you, gosh.
Of course.
We met with Representative McMurtry, who was so gracious with his time and showed us all around. So really such a fabulous day.
Yeah.
Serving on school committee is such an honor, and it's work I take seriously. It's work I really love, and I'm really proud of the work that we've done and excited for the work that's to come.
Well, what motivated you to run for school committee originally? You said you moved here in Westwood in 2018, so I'm going to go on a limb here and said you already had your children before you came here. So what made you run for school committee?
I was a little bit older, but I think, so my boys were a little bit older, so I had not free time, but I had kind of more room in my schedule. They were a little bit more independent, so I had the time. But I think what really compelled me to run is I want to share a story without the specifics, but I want to share a story that I know about of a family here in Westwood. So I'll just say there's a child who signaled that they needed help, and they shared that need with a friend. And that friend took it seriously and trusted and was mature enough to talk to her parent. And her parent reached out also took it seriously and understood what was needed to happen. And that parent reached out to the school, and that school also took it seriously. And the school reached out back to the parent of the child. What's remarkable about that story is that happened over the course of 12 hours. More remarkable that happened over the course of 12 hours over a weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anywhere. That showed me that this is a community that cares deeply about their children. And the entire community, from the student, the friend who knew to talk to their mom, from the parent who knew to reach out to the school and who to reach out to and how to get a hold of them after hours, to to the school taking it seriously, and the full circle of making sure that they communicated with family the significance of this event and the resources that the child could use to get the help they needed.
All right, so Joanna, you've talked a little bit about your own experience in the school committee. I just have a question. What does school committee actually do? You've talked about how you're involved in the curriculum and just like outreach, but past that?
So there's really the main three roles of a school committee member is to hire and fire the superintendent, to set the policy and review that policy according to DESE standards, so to make sure our standards here in Westwood align appropriately up with the policy at the state, and it's to oversee and manage the budget. So those are, like, on paper, that's the job. In reality, it also is the most important part of our job is to be the advocate and the liaison from communities and families and residents back to the district leadership, so that they're aware of the concerns, the challenges, the celebrations, everything that is happening. We're just another set of eyes and ears, and we're a trusted resource for the community to talk to. And that's kind of my favorite part of the job. But then we all, if we get into the nitty gritties, we all have committee assignments, and we can raise our hand and be part of the curriculum review. We can be a part of, some of the administrative hiring decisions if we wanted to be on the search committee for those. So it's really at our discretion. But the core part of our job are those three aspects. But my favorite part is being the kind of conduit between families and the district.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. It's awesome. I know you talked a bit about Mask Day on the Hill being one of your favorite days. I was so grateful to be there. So incredibly sad that Hunter couldn't be there.
I was so sad that I couldn't be there.
So much fun. But I guess kind of in relation to that it was definitely something, an event where it was so incredibly youth focused. We are really highlighting the needs and the concerns for students across school districts in Massachusetts. And I think in that way, it sort of emphasized youth political participation and engagement and just civic action in general. So kind of what is your perspective on how we can all get involved in local government and with our own school committee and stuff like that, so we can really have an impact on things that we're passionate about?
Yeah, I love that question. There's a lot happening in the world and at the national level, and for you all, as just entering into your college experience, and then will enter into your careers or whatever comes next for you, I can only imagine how overwhelming it can feel and how helpless you might feel given all of that is happening and how little say you all have in it. I will say for me, one thing that grounds me in my work is that I can't make a difference really of everything that's happening out there. It's too much. But here, locally, very locally, whether it's very local here in Westwood on school committee or at the select board level, or even being on some of the committees and the volunteer opportunities around town, that makes a difference. So the actions that we take locally can make so much of a difference. All politics is local. All activism is local. So with that in mind, it's like, well, I can't change what's happening in DC or in Iran, but I can really impact right here. And that motivates me. That keeps me kind of grounded in the work. So I would encourage any young people to get involved very locally. I know, Hunter, you're involved very locally in different politics. And it's, whether it's being involved in a person's campaign or whether it's being a part of like the Environmental Action Committee here in Westwood or whatever moves you. But making that action very local makes it feel very real and brings it to life, and you can feel like you're making a big impact.
Yeah. So to sort of expand on that, I'm working in a campaign right now, but it's a very different kind of campaign. It's a congressional campaign. So I was wondering, like, what goes into a campaign that's just Westwood? Like, does it go beyond the signs? Because the signs are great. I'll give you that.
I would like to think it goes beyond the signs. I think it is talking to as many people as you can talk to. So I know we're recording this before the election, so I can I'll just share that like I've spent the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks like on the phones, reaching out to voters, reaching out to people, telling them who I am, what I do. I mean, as much as it feels, I've been in the role before. I'm the incumbent. I have that benefit, but it's still I meet people every day who don't know me, haven't met me. I don't know them. So to be able to connect locally with voters has been really helpful. So that's what I think is the core of the work in the prep. There's also making sure you understand why you're doing this. What is your why? What makes you want to run? And being able to share that and to succinctly say what it is you are about. But reaching out and having those conversations, I think, is really the core of it. Honestly, the signs are kind of fun. It's fun to see your name around town. Putting up social media helps, but it's having that one-to-one connection with the voter and with the resident to help them meet you and understand what you're about and hear directly from them. What's a burning question or an issue for them that I can take in and shape my view. So that's really where it comes down. It's knocking on doors and picking up the phone.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does that communication with like so many residents continue on the not day-to-day, like just in general on school committee? Like I know you talk about being like a community liaison. So like kind of how could you touch more on that and like kind of what that looks like at your level?
Yeah. So, I think, first of all, I would also encourage, folks, especially families, if they have a concern or something, always start with your teacher. And if you can't settle it there, work with your principal. If you can't work, move up the chain of command.
Keep working your way up.
What I mean? But at a holistic level, our one way that we connect with the community is to help guide the way we as a district communicate with our families. So, for example, Superintendent Pivovar recently launched a monthly newsletter talking about what's happening in the district, so families can be aware and keep informed. Encouraging and giving the resources for a new website redesign. That's one thing that's part of the budget that we oversee, and giving the resources for that kind of communication is helpful. We have to work closely and transparently and collaboratively with our community in order to do some of the capital projects that we have in front of us. So when we're thinking about Thurston or the needs at Sheehan or any of the capital improvements that we have around town, we have to work with the town residents beyond just families, because this is going to impact their taxes. It's going to impact their budget. So we need to come to them and bring them along in the process and be as transparent about the process as we can in order to bring them along so that we have the support we need to make, to address the challenges we have on our capital needs. So for example, we recently submitted a statement of interest with the MSBA, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority, in order to hopefully get some help in rebuilding our capital needs in town. In order to keep that process moving forward, we reached out and did a survey to the entire community, not just families, but we opened it up to the entire community. And we had more than 1,500 respondents respondents to that survey. So we were able to say, yes, okay, we think this is the right path, and they confirmed that. And having that input and that dialogue not only informs us, but it also brings the community along in some of the decisions that we're making.
You mentioned how your budget that the school commission can work with also helps fund projects like Thurston. Like we know that's in need of repair. So something I came to light that I found out earlier yesterday was that Trump had put budget cuts for education. And how do those cuts to education like directly impact the school committee, and how does the school committee's budget impact everyone else in the school?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. And thanks for asking that. I think it's twofold. Directly, we receive federal funds through the IDEA grant, and we had those funds cut by, I think, $197,000 in this year's budget. So we already out of the gate had a $200,000 shortfall from the previous year. The other thing is cuts at the state trickle down to to every community. So, for example, some of the cuts at the USDA impact free and reduced lunch opportunities for families. Now, we're fortunate that we live in Massachusetts, and our governor is committed to a free and reduced lunch for all of our community. So that's what keeps lunches free here in Westwood and breakfast free here in Westwood. But that's only because we take action at the state level. But that is an example of a cut at a federal level that had to trickle down through the state that we had to mitigate for. As you saw when we were at the Day on the Hill, they were going through that budget, and they were talking about where these, how that federal budget is trickling down and how it's really tough. I mean, the challenges and the cuts that they have to figure out is going to impact every town, including Westwood.
Yeah, and so much so that it's impacted the classrooms. My AP world history teacher says we can't do these kind of things, use these kind of resources because the school didn't get, we don't have enough funding for it. It's already impacting our classrooms. I can't I don't know, I can't speak for everyone else, but at least in my classroom, it's directly affecting me.
Yeah, I will say there are a lot of other factors that go into, it's not just at the federal level. We're feeling the pinch across town. But we're in a tough budget cycle. We're in a tough budget situation. The costs are rising more than we can aggregately tax our community. So, for example, I'm getting into the weeds here, but
go for it.
We
love the weeds over
and
here.
Then I'm gonna have people fact checking me. So I just be gracious.
You're in a safe space.
They want things. Hopefully, all of them out there are too. But our costs, everyone's costs, our budgets at home, our grocery bill has increased more than just 2.5%. But in Massachusetts, they have a state law that only allows our community tax rate to go up 2.5%. So that, in a simpler way, says, for things that have exceeded 2.5%, we have to take cuts elsewhere. So that's hard. We don't have, even in a wealthy town like Westwood, a well-resourced town like Westwood, we're still facing some of those cuts. And we're constrained by that Prop 2.5. And we're also constrained because we have a lower commercial tax rate or tax base than other communities do. We don't have as much commercial tax coming in revenue. So it means that any increase is on the resident. So our residential tax rate or tax base is about 82%. So we don't get as much from our capital base or from our commercial base.
Right.
Sorry, that was probably too much detail, but
no, that was perfect.
That was
but
great.
So it's the Fed cuts definitely don't help, but then when it trickles down, it's just difficult all around.
Yeah,
and prices are not going down.
So you mentioned Prop 2.5. Meaning the rate can't go up, or it's the total value can't go up?
Yeah, the total aggregate.
Yeah.
In essence, the most we can increase our overall tax increase as a town. Basically, we take the town budget of last year, and we start with a 2.5% increase. And all of the things that we need to do in there, if we can't do within 2.5%, we have to find cuts.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That might
exactly.
be a simpler way to explain it. And anything else, we have to find other sources to pay for, whether it's an override or it's a debt exclusion or those things. That's how you got to make it up sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think you touched on a little bit of like, it's not specifically just federal education cuts, but it's also tensions at like a local level. And I think we've definitely seen this in the past couple of months. I think it was in December, January, like when the first, I believe like town budget was released.
Yeah.
And I think we saw some conflict between school committee and select board. Could you touch a bit on that and like what, because I think there was a lot of conversation surrounding that, like among Westwood residents. So if you could kind of like touch a bit on that a little bit more and just kind of emphasize like, what has the resolution been? Because I think maybe not as many people know as like the final outcome rather than just like what was originally announced.
Is there some interdepartment drama? I haven't heard about this.
No. Let me share. So I will say this was probably one of the most difficult challenges I faced on school committee to date. So the budget process takes several weeks, if not a month or more. And putting together our district budget rolls up into the town budget. Okay, we don't have a separate budget. There's only one tax base.
I see.
So our budget is a part of the overall town budget. Okay, and it's kind of negotiated between town and district over the course of a system through budget steering process. The budget steering process is where leaders of the school committee and the district meet with leaders from the select board and the town administrator, and they basically, divvy up the beans, so to say. And we had a very challenging budget landscape that we were working within. Our original budget we came up with a number after several weeks of kind of conversation and negotiation with the budget steering committee, and the result that we presented in January was going to present some pretty significant cuts. So I know families were pretty upset with some of the proposed changes. We were going to actually have to cut 4 classroom teachers in the elementary schools, among other cuts, and that was in addition to additional cuts. So we, over the course of that process and over the course of a week or so, we learned that there may be more resources at the town level. And it compelled us to reconsider our budget, because we had come in with, like, I want to say 4.3% increase over last year. So again, Prop 2.5 only allows for 2.5, but we came in with in order for us to provide the services that we need to provide, even with those cuts, it was 4.3% increase over last year.
And then the additional 2.5 to get you to 4.3 would have to come from town delegated resources. Is that what it would be?
Well, it's all one bucket, but it basically, you basically put, okay, well, so this is the school committee budget, or this is the district budget, and this is, the police officers budget, and this is, first responders, and then it all rolls up into one master budget.
Oh, okay. So it was the overall, not just, got it.
And when we discovered that there were possibly more resources available, we couldn't sit back.
You had to jump on it, yeah.
Well, knowing that there were, that we had made some significant cuts and there may be more resources available. So we pushed and urged Superintendent Pivovar to go back and reconsider the budget. Now, the way that played out isn't typical. In the public way in which this process unfolded, it sort of broke norms. Frankly, it broke trust between our two groups. And, even with all of that, I stand by the decision and the actions that we took, because when you put students at the center of every decision you make, you're always going to do the right thing. And I didn't like the way in which we had to do that, or it felt like we had to do that, but I stand by the actions that we took. I will say, so the resolution, we presented a 4.91% increase. We worked to, settle what that would mean for our district, which also meant that we didn't have to make those significant classroom cuts. We also, this was a process where right when our new town administrator was coming on board at that same time, so he wanted to get himself acclimated a little bit, take a look at the books, kind of figure things out a little bit. That conversation happened between the chair of the school committee, chair of the select board, and all the players involved there, and that they were able to come to a resolution on what that number could be. And moving forward, if I'm reelected, I will be next in line for the chair to be the chair. So I will serve on budget steering next year when we're settling the budget. I've already met with Marianne LeBlanc Cummings, who will be the select board chair, to, reconsider the process, reconsider the timeline, reconsider the resources, because we both agreed this wasn't ideal, to say the least. That's not how we typically operate. We don't want to do this ever again. The tactics, tactically there are things we can do different. The timeline can be slightly adjusted, and then we can really, come at this more transparently. And let's have a full look at both books. Let's figure out how to divide it up and make sure that it feels more transparent, more collaborative. So, it ended where it needed to end. I don't love the process of getting there, but that's government. That's government sometimes. It's not pretty sometimes, but we have to do what we think is right.
So what do you think the district is falling short on right now, and where do you think it is succeeding outside of the budget? Because we've been talking about the budget for a while.
I mean, budgets can be a challenge, but I think the real opportunity we have and the challenge that we're facing, but the opportunity that we have through that challenge is to address our special education services across the district, but especially at the middle school. So we recently reviewed the results of a special education audit that we did over a 9-month period over last spring and into the fall. And we had the audit review earlier this year. And now the hard work begins on implementing those recommendations. And we see some real opportunities of ways, things we can change, things we can do different, some redundancies that we can improve that will ultimately save money, and other ways that we can be supporting our students in different ways earlier in their general education experience that may bolster some of the skills they need in order to make the transition from elementary to middle, and then from middle to high school, because that's where we see, an increase compared to our peers, an increase in special education diagnoses, additional supports being requested. So how we shape and address our service delivery model across the district, but especially at the middle school level, I think is going to be a real opportunity for us to focus on over the next year and more. There's a lot of work to do, bridging that gap between kind of the general education and the special education. But I think what's going well, and what I love to focus on, is I think we really here in Westwood, we celebrate curious learners. We have exceptional teachers who take risks and they experiment, and they are so passionate about their work. We have families who are engaged and they really lean in on the process. And all of that allows all the other things to work. It helps us. It gives
build
us,
on itself.
Yeah, it gives us the space to address some of those challenges when we have all the other parts working well. And one thing that that we really worked hard over the last couple of years to do is to set forth. You guys might be familiar with the portrait of a graduate work. So that was a deep dive. It included families. It included students. There's, it was a working process where we wanted to really dig in on what is it we want our graduates to know and to do and to be able to do as they leave here. And it's not about, we want them to reach a certain level in math or they want to have a certain AP score. It's not that. It's who do we want them to be? What characters do they have? So where that landed, we want them to be creative and critical thinkers. We want them to act with integrity. We want them to be able to communicate and collaborate, and you all are doing that right now. And we want them to be engaged locally and globally. We want them to be able to navigate this world and take action both locally and globally. So I'm excited to see then how do we take that lovely thing that we put on paper and move it into the classroom so we can really see outcomes. What steps do we need to take? And that is through our strategic multi-year strategic vision. So that's the next phase of that.
Very well explained. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know you talked about your pipeline, your course pipeline. Is that what you called it? Course.
Oh,
pipeline?
the evaluation, the curriculum reviews.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought it was pipeline.
Yeah. Well, I think I might have mentioned that we do it, in a sequential order. Yeah.
How kind of does your role in that kind of aspect tie into creating these creative and critical thinkers?
Yeah, that's a great
how
question.
does it all work together?
Well, so for example, I served on the World Language Curriculum Review. This is maybe it was early in my tenure. It was within the first year of my tenure, we started that work, or I joined that work. I forget where it was in the process. But my role on there is to, one, just listen and to hear what they're coming up with. But the teachers really drive that process, and it's typically led by a department head, and then our assistant superintendent is in charge of the curriculum development and the support for teachers. So they work together to kind of look at, okay, this is how we've been doing it. Is this working? What could we be doing differently? And then they literally will go to other districts and do what's called walkabouts. They'll go to other districts and say, well, they're introducing, French and Spanish to 6th grade instead of 7th and just 8th. How could we do that? What could that look like? Oh my gosh, we see some districts are actually doing it in the elementary schools. What could that look like? How would they shape their schedule? I mean, it's not to say we're going to walk away and do exactly that, but it just means that we see real examples of how other schools do this work. And then we come back as a group and we talk through some of those findings, and we'd survey families. Your family's probably got surveys about, what language are you taking? Did you take? Did you stick with? What other languages would you like to see us offer in the district? So all of that came from all these, kind of different qualitative and quantitative sources of data. And then they present a list of recommendations. And I, as school committee member, is part of that core group. And ultimately, it's then presented to the rest of the school committee in order for us to help think about, okay, if this is the recommendation, how do we get from where we are to where we want to be? What resources do we need? What money do we need? Mm-hmm. What staffing might need to change? How might the schedule change? And while the school committee isn't responsible for setting the bell schedule, it's a matter of having a conversation of how do we uncover all the different ways to make this work. So those curriculum reviews happen in a sequence. Right now, I'm part of the performing arts review, and we're still in the kind of the early stage research stage. And then hopefully in the next 6 months or so, we'll come up with some recommendations over the summer, and then into the new year after the summer, we'll regroup. And talk about, okay, so what does this look like? What do other schools offer in terms of performing arts? What does a graduation requirement look like? How do we shape our schedule so that we could possibly maybe have a little bit more room for some of those? I know you folks are very, you're all junior. You're a junior.
I'm a junior.
You're all juniors.
We're all juniors here.
So you all have very busy schedules. You don't have a lot of room for an extra ceramics class or an extra, a drama class or a dance class or a yoga class. You don't have room in your schedules right now for that. And that's a barrier to a more robust learning experience. So what else could we do? Could we think more creatively about that bell schedule? Who knows? I'm not making a recommendation here. I don't know where this is going to land, but those are some questions we're asking.
You said you didn't set this bell schedule. There's the superintendent and the principal, the vice principal, the dean. They work on the actual school front.
Yeah, certainly the principal. I mean, it's important that all of our elementary schools have the same bell schedule, so it's not at it's not localized to the elementary level. But so all the elementary schools have the same bell schedule and the same kind of rotation.
Yeah.
But then the middle school has, they had that they had the 7 blocks. I think it's day 7. They have 7 days.
X block, S block.
They have WIN is now it's called, instead of X block it's changed to WIN. But so they work on that on a very local level with the principal and with the admin team, the leadership team of each school. And with Amy leaving and a new principal coming on, there's maybe a conversation, an opportunity to have that conversation after, they get here and get settled a bit.
You don't do transportation either, do you?
In what way?
Like buses, sending kids to like field trips.
Yeah,
like that kind of transportation.
So in some cases, yeah. Well, first of all, we approve the budget that pays for the buses.
For the buses, yeah.
And we oversee the budget that negotiates the transportation costs with the bus company. So that's our director of finance and operations really does the bulk of that, but she then has to report back to us about like where those contracts are and how much it's going to cost, and should we raise bus fees or how much, and how do we cover these expenses, right? So that happens, from the budget perspective. That's where we come in. We also do because of DESE policy, we have to approve out of state. Or in some cases, out-of-country school-sponsored trips. So those will come before us for us to approve. So if the robotics team is traveling to, to another state, we'll approve that. And we'll learn about.
You need to sign off.
Yeah. We need to know when you guys are leaving states. Yeah.
How has having like kids who are actually like in the Westwood school system, middle school and high school, like how does that impact like the way that you work on the school committee and like your perspective when looking at all these different like problems but also solutions that we're seeing?
Yeah, I think well, first of all, I think that it's helpful to have school committee members who have kids in the district. So I mean, we certainly have had a history of folks on committee who haven't or have had but have then moved on. So we've done it all sorts of ways, but I think having a student who has at least more recently gone through the school district is certainly helpful, because you can see from the parent lens kind of what they're going through, what they're facing, what their world is like, and it brings that just a little bit closer. I think one of the things that is challenging is that there are decisions that I've had to make, there are votes I've had to take that are counter to what I would want for my own kid. And because I think about when I make decisions, I make the decision that's going to be best for all students. I have to take my own child out of that equation. And when you're in a public school district, you are serving all students. And to be focused on one particular student experience is sort of missing the point of being on school committee. So I think in one way it's really helpful because I get to see sort of the back end, but I have to look longer term. I'm looking, for example, we talked a little bit about rebuilding Thurston or, addressing our capital needs. My kids are never going to step foot in that school as a student. They're going to be long gone. On the timeline that we have put forth for Thurston, my kid will be graduating when that is finally open, and he's only in 6th grade. So you have to think with a long-term lens, and sometimes that means making a decision that in the short term will impact your kid, but in the long term is the right decision for the district.
Well, that's it from me. Think tank is empty. I'm all set.
How do you put this in your schedule? Like, how do you, what does this commitment look like on top of everything else that you're doing, everything else you're involved with?
Yeah, I think it's you find the time for the things that are important. I think that's always the case. If working out every day is important, you find the time to do it. This is important. I find the time to do it. I'm happy to do it. I think it's also I'm not in the schools every single day. My role is not. It's what I make it, honestly. So I get to decide what I want to get involved in. I get to decide if I want to be on this curriculum review. Like when they said performing arts curriculum review, I'm like, yep, I got that. That's all me. I'm on it. Because that's really, my kids are involved in the performing arts programs, and that's important to me. So I think it's what you make it, and the more engaged you can be, and the more time you can give, that's great. But if you can't, that's we all do what we can, and we work around each other's schedule, and kind of make it work within our own lives.
This is a question that I like to ask all my guests at the end of the episode, just because I think we're all in high school. This is a very youth perspective led kind of interview. So if you could go back in time and give your high school self a piece of advice, kind of like, what would it be?
Yeah, I love that. I have a benefit of having a child who's exactly your ages and going through what they're going through. And what I think about and what I wish I knew then is it's okay. I promise you, it's okay to not know where this goes. It's okay if you don't know exactly what comes next for you. It's okay if you don't have it 100% figured out. It's also okay if you think you have it very much figured out, and then things change. It's embrace failure, embrace being uncomfortable with making challenging decisions. It's okay if your family really wanted you to be X and you're going to be Y. Like, you do you, and it'll all work out. There's going to be a college for everybody if that's your choice and that's where what you want to do next. All of these opportunities are still there. There's no timeline. So I want to take the temperature down and the pressure down. I feel like this future, the high schoolers these days, they
Kids these days.
there was so much pressure to like have it all figured out and to have, started a startup and to be, doing all these amazing things, which is great. That's great. If that's not you, that's okay. Life would just be really boring if we all knew exactly how it ended and how we were supposed to get there. So enjoy the journey. I know this sounds so trite, but it's okay that it's going to work out. It's going to be okay. No matter if it doesn't feel okay right now, it's going to be fine. That's what I wish I knew.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Oh my God, I always love these questions because the answers are always so heartfelt. Oh my goodness.
I mean, if I can share it, when I was, when I was in high school, I did an internship at I thought I wanted to be a speech therapist. I knew I didn't want to be a teacher because good grief, no way. But I knew I wanted to be kind of adjacent to education. So I thought I wanted to go into speech therapy. I did an internship for a semester with a local sports speech therapy group. I went into that as my major. Was great. Everything was great. We were just ticking along. And then junior year, I studied abroad and everything changed. And I graduated with that major, but ended up doing something completely different for graduate school. I had a very serious boyfriend. We were kind of engaged through junior year and came back and broke that off. I broke up with him after he proposed at the top of the Eiffel Tower. I mean, it was wild. And and it all worked out. I mean, that relationship didn't work out, but I'm pretty happy with how the rest of it came out. Yeah. So it's, that was all really hard. It was really hard to go through all of that. And I never knew if I was making the right decision. But you just got to keep taking one step at a time because it's going to be fine. It's going to work out.
Maybe we should have asked different questions.
I can come back for another episode. Life lessons with Joanna French.
I mean, there were some pretty good ones there. Yeah. I feel like we got a lot in that small bit. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here. We were so lucky to have your perspective, especially with everything with school committee going on right now. It's been so exciting to just get a deeper look into the actual dynamics of it.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I haven't been interested in local politics up until this year pretty much. And then I joined YAC, the Youth Advisory Council, and now I'm open these doors into a lot of intrigue, and I'm invested now.
You can make meaningful change. Doesn't that feel powerful and amazing? Yeah. It feels so gratifying.
So this podcast was very enlightening for me. Thank you very much.
So glad. I'm so glad.
Well, Hunter, Sebastian, thank you guys so much for hosting
glad
today.
To be here.
It was a pleasure.
Joanna, thank you so much for being here. It was so much fun. And then, of course, thank you to everyone watching and our amazing team at Westwood Media Center. As always, we will see you next time after class.